This presentation supports human resource issues internal. This time we're looking at employee relations. So through this, hopefully, we can understand the significance of the employee relations, particularly in leading change and helping them to adapt to employment relation guidelines and legislation. So I think, as we've mentioned before, HR, most valuable resource in any organisation, and it needs to be protected. It is what we refer to, it's very fickle. So 1 minute it can be highly productive and motivated, that should be and not NAD, and motivated. The next minute it can be inefficient, can be demotivated and lacking a sort of collective morale. So it's a very difficult thing to manage. Now, studies in employee relations aim to keep human resources productive, efficient, and happy. And I think that's the key thing to remember is contrary to some people's belief, to work hard is you keep people happy. And so this is what productivity also is a byproduct of doing, and that raises morale in staff, which is always beneficial. Employer relations are a great concern to the government as well, because they are society's greatest resource. There's a whole heap of legislation and laws that protect the relationship between employees, managers, and leaders. So really what we've also got to remember whenever we're looking into this relationship, and it's a very distinct, complex relationship between employees, managers, and leaders, is there's always conflict going on. So if you look at the reasons, the motivations behind it, employees, they want a safe working environment, they want to be paid well. Managers want the employees to be earning their money effectively. They want to be paying them an amount that represents how well they work, which is obviously very subjective. And leaders really want to make sure there's a positive relationship between these two to ensure that these guys can take the organisation to where they want to be. Obviously, there's really distinct things with cost cutting and getting value for money out of your labour force, and these are obviously things which conflict as well. Essentially, when they come to the workplace day in, day out, it is essentially that they must be getting. So positive relations are very important in the workplace. So as I mentioned before, this conflict is something that has to be managed on a day-to-day basis. However, the interesting thing is that conflict, we think of it as a very negative thing, but also it can act as a stage to progress and take to the next level and come to some form of unity and agreement. So it can be viewed in a positive way. The key thing is, because of the dynamic global business environments that these organisations operate in, there is very often intense strain between all of these stakeholder groups, and that puts a further pressure on the relationship and maintaining the relationship, and that is why so much work is done towards maintaining positive relations. So it's the maintenance of that relationship between employees and the employer, be it the managers, be it the leaders. Okay. And in this, you can see things which feed into what might develop in terms of positive or even negative relations. So performances, judgment on performances, appraisals. From that, providing assistance where you're recognising that people may be struggling. Counselling in some instances. You might think, well, that's a bit above and beyond an organisation, the managers and the workers, but really if your workers aren't their well-being isn't considered, then they're not going to be so productive. Dispute resolution, a big one. There will be disputes occurring, as I mentioned, conflict. Training and development needs to be identified and needs to be incorporated. And largely what it comes down to is rights and responsibilities and the recognition of the role of these. So recognition of both of these from both parties. So a right and entitlement to do something, whether justice and due process or ownership of the property or interest. A responsibility, a legal duty to do to pay or to do something. So when we're thinking about our rights, these need to be defended for employees by such external agencies as trade unions. Responsibilities are for the people in the higher structure of the organisation. They are responsible for a certain group of workers. So really, it's an interchangeable thing. Everyone has rights and responsibilities, and this is what feeds into the employee relations. So really, it's ensuring that employers meet responsibilities to employees. That's the key one that you really okay. And overall, everyone's working in the same way to achieve those business objectives.